stock wouldn't be trading near all-time highs if it was not, if things weren't in good shape. They're fine. Don't worry about it.
I mean, if you're a producer, if you're a manufacturer, you can't have different rules in different states. You want one national standard.
Even a Tesla that you buy right now, and the self-driving just costs $99 a month, will give you autonomous driving anywhere in the country right now.
I mean, their head of self-driving basically said, I think it was earlier this month, that Waymo is a couple years ahead of them.
All that and more. So let's get to it. Tesla stock is up in the pre-market, currently sitting around $344.35. $350 per share has typically been the resistance for the stock as of late, but Elon's been a bit of a busy bee as of late. He went on Bloomberg and Cnbc. Not only did Elon clear up a few things for the legacy media, the man felt like a wartime techno king, if you know what I mean. Let's hear what transpired.
Hello, everyone, and Elon Musk, welcome to Qatar Economic Forum. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm fine. How are you?
Very well, thank you, and very pleased to have you with us. You know, among those here in the audience in Doha are some you will know, people who have backed you financially over the years. Since you last spoke here in 2022, a lot has changed in your life. You're not only running multiple companies, you were doing that then, but now you also have a role in government. So first of all, I hope you won't mind if from time to time I have to move you from one topic to another because we have a lot to cover in the time we have. That will be all right? Okay.
Yeah,
well, let's start then with exactly the fact that you now have this combination of being a CEO and having a role as a government advisor. Tell me about your week. How does it work? What's the split of your time?
Well, I travel a lot. So I was in Silicon Valley yesterday morning. I was in LA yesterday evening. I'm in Austin right now. I'll be in DC tomorrow. I'll be there having dinner with the president tomorrow night, I believe. And then a whole bunch of cabinet secretary meetings, and then back to Silicon Valley on Thursday night.
But I mean, the balance of your time, is it, well, clearly it's a lot, but is it still the case, as you said a while ago, that it's about 1 to 2 days a week on your government work?
Yeah.
How Elon Musk chooses to spend his time is of some importance, but the man has incredible time management skills. Whatever amount of time Elon sees fit to get the job done in any of the arenas that he chooses to play in, your boy, he's just going to trust he knows what he's doing, at least for now.
That's correct.
And what does that mean for your corporate life? Because if we start with Tesla, the company has suffered in recent months what you've called blowback. So what is your plan for turning that around, the declining sales picture? And by what stage do you think you're going to be able to turn it around?
Oh, it's already turned around.
Give me some evidence for that. I've just been looking at the sales figures for Europe in April, which show very significant declines in the big markets.
Europe is our weakest market. We're strong everywhere else. So our sales are doing well at this point. We don't anticipate any meaningful sales shortfall, and obviously the stock market recognizes that, since we're now back over $1 trillion in market cap. So clearly the market is aware of the situation. So it's already turned around.
But sales still down compared to this time last year.
In Europe.
In Europe, okay. And
yes, but that's true of all manufacturers. There's no exceptions.
Does that mean that you're not going to be able? Does that mean
European market is quite weak?
Okay, but you would acknowledge, wouldn't you, that what you are facing, okay, let's just take it as Europe, what you are facing is a significant problem.
Oh, dear God. It's going to be one of these types of interviews, huh? Probably not the best way to start off your day. Elon Musk has a point, though. The stock market seems to know how well the business is doing even before they release, say, their Q2 numbers. A month or two before those earnings statements, the stock will either run up or run down. Almost as if the stock market knows something about these short-term numbers that are going to be released. Could it be that the sales drop year over year could have been from the changeover of the most popular vehicle on the planet? Nah, it's gotta be the brand damage, right? Right?
This Tesla was an incredibly aspirational brand. People identified with it. They saw it as being at the forefront of the climate crisis, and now people are driving around with stickers in their cars saying, "I bought this before we knew Elon was crazy."
And there are also people who are buying it because Elon's crazy, or however they may view it. So yes, we've lost some sales perhaps on the left, but we've gained them on the right. The sales numbers at this point are strong, and we see no problem with demand.
So what do you...
And I mean, you can just look at the stock price. If you want the best inside information, the stock market analysts have that, and our stock wouldn't be trading near all-time highs if it was not, if things weren't in good shape. They're fine. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry, Elon. I'm definitely not worried about it. The sales will come. The technology needs to work, and the sales will come. I'm not looking in the rearview mirror, ladies and gentlemen. I'm trying to see what's coming over the horizon.
I was citing sales figures rather than share price. Well, tell me then how committed you are to Tesla. Do you see yourself, and are you committed to still being the chief executive of Tesla in 5 years' time?
Yes.
No doubt about that at all.
Well, no, I might die.
Okay, short of that.
I can't be CEO if I'm dead. So there's a slight amount of...
Does that mean that the value of your pay doesn't have any bearing on your decision?
Well, that's not really a subject of discussion in this forum. I think obviously there should be compensation for, if something incredible is done, that compensation should match that something incredible was done. But I'm confident that whatever some activist posing as a judge in Delaware happens to do will not affect the future compensation.
This is the judge who twice struck down the $56 billion pay package that was awarded to you. I think the value on the current value of stock options. Yeah.
Not a judge. The activist who is cosplaying a judge in a Halloween costume.
Okay. Get pay that man his money. He did something absolutely remarkable. What the street really thought was impossible. This man hasn't been paid in like 7 years. 7 years. That's a long time. A lot has changed. We need to get past this so that we can see what the board has in store for Tesla as investors. What benchmarks are they going to give Elon Musk that many of the Wall Street analysts might deem as impossible? The skeptics scoff at some of these timelines, but if you pay the man according to his metrics in the pay package, he either does what's listed there or gets paid nothing. Pay that man his money.
Okay, that's your characterization. I think yes. On the current value of stock options, I think the actual
justice according to the law.
On the current value of stock options, I think the value of that pay package stands at about $100 billion. Are you saying you are relaxed about the value of your future pay package? Your decision to be committed to Tesla for the next 5 years, as long as you are still with us on this planet, is completely independent of pay?
No.
It's not independent. So pay is a relevant factor then to your commitment to Tesla?
A sufficient voting control such that I cannot be ousted by activist investors is what matters to me. And I've said this publicly many times. But let's not have this whole thing be a discussion of my alleged pay. It's not a money thing. It's a reasonable control thing over the future of the company, especially if we're building millions, potentially billions of humanoid robots. I can't be sitting there and one day get tossed out by, for political reasons, by activists. That would be unacceptable. That's all that matters. Now let's move on.
Okay. Well, just one question.
Let's move on.
Well, one question before we move on to other companies, which is that I wonder if some of what has happened to Tesla in the last few months, did you take it personally?
Yes.
And did it make you regret or think twice about your political endeavors? Because
I did what needed to be done. The violent antibody reaction, and I'm not someone who's ever committed violence, and yet massive violence was committed against my companies. Massive violence was threatened against me. Who are these people? Why would they do that? How wrong can they be? They're on the wrong side of history, and that's an evil thing to do. To go and damage some poor innocent person's car, to threaten to kill me. What's wrong with these people? I've not harmed anyone. So something needs to be done about them. And a number of them are going to prison, and they deserve it. And more will.
You're referring to the attacks on Tesla showrooms, but I think...
Yeah. Firing bullets into showrooms and burning down cars is unacceptable.
Yeah.
Those people will go to prison, and the people that funded them and organized them will also go to prison. Don't worry.
But wouldn't you...
We're coming for you.
Wouldn't you...
There may be an air of levity in what Elon Musk is saying, but firing bullets into showrooms, lighting cars on fire, absolutely unacceptable. People should pay for their actions. And the buck doesn't stop with these individuals that committed these horrible, horrible acts. The rest of the Bloomberg conversation kind of turns political. Very little regarding the way of Tesla, and that's what I'm about. I want to know more information, or as much information about Tesla as I possibly can. The entirety of the conversation is in a link below. Feel free to check that out, but we're going to move on to more pressing Tesla concerns.
Duffy, of course, Secretary of Transportation, is here in Austin at the Gigafactory. You got a little ride in an autonomous vehicle.
I did.
You got a tour of the factory floor, which never disappoints. But what are you doing here? Why are you here to begin with?
So you think of DOT sometimes as hard hats and construction vests. Actually, we're at the forefront of the rules, whether it's on autonomous vehicles or drone technology or the eVTOLs or the Ubers in the air. And so it's important that we get it right. We want to innovate in America. We want the jobs to be in America. We want to deploy American innovation around the world. If we don't get the rules right, that innovation is going to happen somewhere else, probably places like China. And I'm concerned, again, if you look at how much information can be gathered from drones or autonomous vehicles, you want to keep that information in America.
Absolutely do.
You do not want to send it to China.
And the Chinese, to your point, they got plenty of EVs and autonomous ones as well, roaming the streets to a certain extent there. What about here? What are your expectations in terms of the federal government? We're here in Texas. We're going to talk to Elon Musk shortly about their ambition to start an autonomous service in Austin in June. How do you view it from the federal lens, given a lot of it's going to be state regulation, depending on the state?
Well, so we don't want state-by-state regulation.
What?
I mean, if you're a producer, if you're a manufacturer, you can't have different rules in different states. You want one national standard. And so what I'm telling everyone who plays in this space, you got to give us your data. We're going to be good partners. Give us your data so we can make good rules to then allow us to deploy one technology across the country. And I think this is amazing in that...
Well, when you say one technology across the country,
not one technology.
Now, it's not, because they're using a different technology here than Waymo is.
One set of rules. Yeah. You want one set of rules by which everyone's going to play by across the country, not a patchwork of state by state. But
it won't be one technology, but there will be a dominant technology. As soon as Tesla goes live with unsupervised FSD, that's what's going to be powering the robotaxi in Austin. That's when they'll divulge all of the necessary data and information, intervention data, teleoperations, all of this, geofencing, all of it, as the weeks, months, and years roll by. Now, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but my hunch is Tesla's going to outpace Waymo in scale, quality, and price.
if you think about how much money we invest in infrastructure and the expansion of infrastructure as things are growing across the country, I think autonomous vehicles can actually allow us to better manage the current road structures that we have, reduce congestion, and we keep losing 40,000 people, give or take, every year. I think this is going to save a lot of lives. I think autonomy, as it develops, I mean, we're distracted by phones.
Without a doubt.
So I think
there's a lot of reasons you could argue for
this is the
Of course,
future.
It's going to have to be a lot better than humans, really, in fact, to pass the test, though, isn't it? In many ways.
It will, and I think
we hold it to a higher standard.
Well, because if you see a crash from an autonomous vehicle, the crash doesn't look like a human crash, so it freaks us out.
Yeah.
But we want to look at all the data and say, are we safer with autonomous vehicles versus the human driver? And again, we want to make sure that we evolve here, we innovate here.
Secretary Duffy saying all the right things when it comes to a national framework for autonomous driving. There will be no favoritism. May the best autonomous ride-hail service win.
And Elon Musk is here. We're in the lobby of the Gigafactory here in Austin. Last time I was here was your annual meeting a couple of years ago, so thank you for having us back.
Welcome back.
You got a robo-taxi right behind you.
We do?
Yeah, yeah, you can see it right
Okay.
there. And obviously you've been meeting with the Transportation Secretary.
Yeah.
Are you going to have full autonomous on the roads of Austin by the end of June?
Yes.
You are. What gives you that confidence?
We have cars driving 24/7 with drivers in the cars, and we see essentially no interventions. So we want to be very careful with the first introduction of unsupervised full self-driving, meaning that the car's driving around with no one in it.
Right.
So we're going to
no one behind a driver's.
Well, yes, and sometimes no one in it at all.
Right.
Just going to pick someone up. So the car has to be incredibly safe. So we're just being, we have thousands of cars that are being tested, which is creating some strange situations where we just drive. There's just a bizarre number of Teslas driving past people's houses. They're like, what's going on?
We even saw one last night coming from the
Yeah.
airport. Yeah, driving at night alone.
So just
it looked very lonely.
It's just, they do look a little lonely.
Yeah.
So it's looking good for Austin next month.
Yeah, some estimates have been that you're only going to have 10 to 12 of them on the road initially. I mean, it's going to be a very small amount. Is that correct?
Yeah, for the first week.
First week. How do you see it ramping up?
Well, we'll have to see how well it does, but I think it's prudent for us to start with a small number, confirm that things are going well, and then scale it up proportionate to how well we see it's doing.
Right, and what's going to be a judge of how well it's doing?
I mean, are there any incidents? Are there any interventions? But we want to deliberately take it slow. I mean, we could start with 1,000 or 10,000 on day one, but I don't think that would be prudent. So we'll start with probably 10 for a week, then increase it to 20, 30, 40. And I think by, say, we'll probably be at 1,000 within a few months. Mm-hmm. And then we'll expand to other cities, so expand to San Francisco, California, Los Angeles, San Antonio.
Now, 24/7. They've got vehicles traversing all over Austin, very few interventions. I wonder what this is going to look like, especially in the state of Texas. He mentioned some California cities. They're going to be in their own bag, but he also mentioned San Antonio at the end. Leads me to believe that San Antonio might be the next city that they try to do this in. How long before Tesla has the confidence that they do as in Austin, 24/7, thousands of people using that particular software? How long before the Tesla team is like, yeah, let's go ahead and launch it in San Antonio? Is that testing already underway? Now, Tesla has unveiled an early access program for FSD users. My question is, will they utilize these FSD users to calculate whether or not the FSD software is ready to be launched as a potential robotaxi? Regardless, by the end of this year, I think Tesla's robotaxi will be operating in every major metropolitan area in the state of Texas. I look forward to experiencing this rollout my damn self.
Texas is very different, I don't need to tell you, than California when it comes to regulation. They don't really have much here in terms of dealing with autonomous, but it's a different story in California.
Yeah, but California's already approved. Waymo's been doing autonomous driving in California for a while.
Right. But do you need a separate approval, or is it somehow?
Right now, the approval process is very haphazard and sort of state by state and sometimes city by city.
We were talking to the Secretary of Transportation about that very fact a moment ago. Yeah.
Right. So it's going to be important to have a unified set of national regulations for self-driving cars. Otherwise, you're going to get into this weird situation where if you're driving from Maine to New York, you're going to go through 10 different sets of regulations. Cars are going to behave differently. It's not going to make any sense.
No.
So, one set of regulations that, just like there is for highway driving, that's what I think makes sense for the country as a whole. But my prediction is that probably by the end of next year, we'll have probably hundreds of thousands, if not
hundreds of thousands,
if not over 1 million Teslas doing self-driving in the U.S.
Those are not okay. What percentage of those are going to be? Well, not the cyber cab. You're just talking about on full self-driving, level 4.
Unsupervised full self-driving,
Right.
meaning you do not need to pay attention.
Right. For me, if I own a Tesla and I have the software, the capability of doing it.
Yes.
Right.
But we'll have a model which is kind of like some combination of Uber and Airbnb. So if you're a Tesla owner,
Right.
You'll be able to add or subtract your car to the fleet. So just like in Airbnb, you could like rent out your spare bedroom or rent out your house when you're not using it. And the same thing will be available for Tesla owners. So
Right.
it's a way for Tesla owners to earn revenue. Instead of having your car sit in the parking lot, your car could be earning money.
You and I talked about that a couple of years ago, which takes me back a bit because, of course, I mean, you remember 2019, you were talking about 2020, the introduction of autonomous, and now you just introduced a fairly somewhat ambitious target. Why do you have the confidence now that in a year, there'll be 1 million available?
Well, and by the end of next year, I think.
End of next
year. So it's just more
End
like
of
18 months.
26, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I think I mean, these things happen slowly, but then all at once.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's Peter Thiel has that book, 0 to 1. Once you have a proof point, once you have it working, then scaling up is, just a matter of time. So once it's working well in Austin, then we'll make sure it works well in other cities. I mean, there are obviously some unique cases like downtown New York, like
Yes.
if you're but that's a highly unusual situation. Most cities in America are like Austin. So
Right. Although you can go on full self-driving right now in New York. I mean, you can obviously have to sit there behind the wheel,
Yes.
and it'll do it.
Oh yeah, no,
It'll navigate the traffic. I've seen it.
yes. No, even a Tesla that you buy right now, and the self-driving just costs $99 a month, will give you autonomous driving anywhere in the country right now. The question is, when is it unsupervised?
Right.
Where that's where we
Right,
want
where
to.
you're sitting in the back, so to speak.
Yes, where you're like asleep, and the car, you wake up at your destination.
Yeah.
Ding, 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 ding. Tell him what he's won, Johnny. Your mother. Right. A vehicle that you purchase today from Tesla is more than likely going to have the same exact capabilities as the vehicles that they will be using for their robo-taxi fleet. What does that mean as a consumer? Well, you probably want your Tesla vehicles before everybody else figures this out. If you're interested in buying Tesla products, being a part of the future, click on the referral link in the pinned comment below, or
Where are you in China right now in terms of your ability to offer that product, though?
Well, we have just get the terminology right.
Understood.
Unsupervised. Supervised full self-driving, where there's a person in the car. It has approval in China, but whenever we release a new version, we have to get an incremental approval.
Right.
And at times we do have to battle other car companies in China who are trying to stop us from
It's
deploying
incredibly competitive market, isn't it?
China is the most competitive market.
And
yeah.
to the extent BYD, which is neck and neck with you, I think, in the EV race, I think it's fair to say, worldwide, correct?
I don't really follow that.
You don't?
No.
Well, they're willing, again, my question is, they're willing to seemingly offer different levels of autonomy for, I don't want to call it free, but part of the cost of the car. Do you see that as a possibility for you? Or is it always going to be that add-on and therefore that significant revenue stream conceivably?
I don't really think about competitors. I just think about making the product as perfect as possible.
You don't think about competitors at all? But
No.
A lion doesn't concern himself with the matters of the wildebeest. Tesla's journey is on pace to set them apart from every other company on the planet. There is no one competitor trying to achieve what Tesla is trying to achieve, and that's sustainable abundance for all. As far as I'm concerned, Tesla has no equal.
I'll come to Waymo because even though they only have about 700 cars, they obviously are on the market. They're in Beverly Hills, all over the place.
It's a proof of concept.
They've got 28 cameras. They've got LiDAR and radar. You've had a different approach. Eight to nine cameras and the neural network. Why do you feel that is going to be the equivalent in terms of safety profile?
Oh, I think it'll be better.
Why?
Because the way that the road system is designed is for AI. It's for intelligence, biological neural net, and eyes. That's how the whole road system is designed. So what will actually work best for the road system is artificial intelligence, digital neural nets, and cameras. And we also have the microphones so the car can hear emergency vehicles and that kind of thing.
Right. You are going to have the microphones to hear the
you need to hear.
That was a question. Right. You need to hear a fire engine or a police car.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
But that's how the whole road system is designed. It's not designed for shooting lasers out of your eyes. And what we found is that when you have multiple sensors, and they tend to get confused. So do you believe the camera or do you believe the LiDAR? Mm-hmm. And if they get confused, that's where that's what can lead to accidents. So we used to have, for example, radar in the car, but we found that the radar and the camera would sometimes disagree, and then you don't know which one to believe.
So it wasn't about expense. It was just about...
No.
Yeah. Are you seeing the data right?
In fact, we turned off the radars in the cars.
Logistics capability to operate sort of a ride-hailing fleet at scale, because you mentioned, obviously, let's call it the end of 26. Are you going to have an app? Are you there? Do you have that ability?
I think we can figure out an app. Somebody tells me.
You're not worried about it?
But Tesla already has an app.
Yeah, I know. But so is there going to be a ride-hailing app you'll introduce?
How to write an app, that's really not the...
It's not too hard?
No.
XAI can probably do it for you in like an hour?
Tesla can write apps just fine.
Do you ever consider licensing the technology at some point?
Yes, there are a number of major automakers that have talked to us about licensing self-driving, and we're very much open to that. I think the more we demonstrate the capability of self-driving, the more that they will want to license it, and we're happy to help.
Back to the safety profile, because it's going to obviously be something a key focus. Business Insider, take it for what you want, but I saw this over the weekend. They did a test between Waymo and Tesla, and they weren't critical at all.
Business Insider is not a real publication.
No, but it did seem...
They're a fake.
Regardless of whether we want to have a debate about their journalistic integrity, which I don't. The test itself, let me just share it with you and get your reaction, which was... the Waymo, ultimately, they said, proved better, in part only because it avoided, with its geofencing, one very difficult intersection that the Tesla chose to go through. It stopped at a red light, but then it went through the red light. What's your reaction?
Look, I'm not going to comment on some Business Insider article.
But is that a concern at all? Because in a way, there's no geofencing, so it's like happy to go on the highways in a way that perhaps a Waymo's not. I guess my question is that a concern at all for you in terms of it encountering things that are still sort of a crucial test and perhaps it fails?
No, first of all, that actually should have been a test of supervised self-driving, supervised self-driving, not unsupervised self-driving. So the assumption there is that you have a person who is going to take over.
Right.
So their test made no sense.
Okay.
When we deploy the cars in Austin, we are actually going to deploy it not to the entire Austin region, but only to the parts of Austin that we consider to be the safest. So we will geofence it.
You will?
Yeah, of course.
Right.
It's not going to take intersections unless we are highly confident it's going to do well with that intersection. It'll just take a route around that intersection.
But there won't be a safety driver in the car.
Correct.
Right, the car, there's not going to be somebody sitting there.
Right.
Now, many of the Tesla bears would like to put a thumb in the eye of some of the bulls there, saying, Oh, many of the bulls said that Tesla was going to flip a switch and robo-taxis would be all over the world overnight. In due time, bears. In due time. But we're just getting started. For now, there will be a geo-fenced area. We want this to go as smoothly as possible for potential consumers. My thing is, will Tesla's geofence be greater than that of Waymo's geofence? Will Tesla be able to traverse different regions of Austin that the Waymo simply won't or can't? The winner will be the one with the largest geographical area of coverage. To the winner will go the spoils. This is also part of that scaling issue that Waymos and Tesla will be engaged in.
What is giving you confidence in the automotive business? Or is it all about robo-taxis, as you've been saying, and people can't quite see them behind me, the robots as well?
Well, really, the only things that matter in the long term are autonomy and Optimus. Those overwhelmingly dominate the future financial success of the company. As for Q1, we had a global factory changeover for the Model Y. So there's a new version of the Model Y that came out, which required a factory shutdown across the world. Model Y is the #1 selling car of any kind on Earth.
Number one in the world.
Number one in the world.
Right? I watched your presentation during your last, right here, I think, during your last earnings.
Right.
Yeah.
It's number one selling car in the world. So, we can't make cars if the factories are retooling. So the right time to retool is the first quarter, since generally that's when the least demand occurs. But we've seen a major rebound in demand at this point. I feel comfortable.
You have seen a major rebound in demand.
Yeah.
You really believe you have seen that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, for most people,
right?
I mean, when you buy a product, I mean, how much do you care about the political views of the CEO, or do you even know what they are?
Why doesn't Tesla buy Uber?
There's no need because we have a large number of cars. We have millions of cars that will be able to operate autonomously, and I should say that it's a combination of a Tesla-owned fleet and also enabling Tesla owners to be able to add or subtract their car to the fleet,
yes,
so that existing Tesla owners will be able to earn money by adding their car to the fleet for autonomous use. And I think it's maybe possible for Tesla owners to make more in allowing their car to be added to
which you discussed,
the self-driving fleet that then they cost them in the lease.
There is absolutely no need to purchase a company like Uber or Lyft. What would you really be buying besides outdated business model that requires humans to drive the vehicle? Maybe you're looking for the brand recognition. You know, this is no longer Uber, it's Tesla Uber. I don't know what people have in mind, but Tesla doesn't need to muddy the waters with something that already exists when they're building things from the ground up. The rest of 2025, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be an interesting time indeed.
As this scales up, you said earlier, you feel like you have the logistics ability and the ability to create the app as well, of course, and anything else around that needs to occur. Yeah,
I don't think we're missing anything. Tesla has all the ingredients necessary to offer a vast self-driving fleet overnight.
Well, you spoke earlier about wanting more control at Tesla. Would you ever consider merging XAI into Tesla? It would be a way, obviously, they could issue shares to you and conceivably would increase your overall economics. Is that a possibility?
Well, I guess anything's possible, but it would be difficult to speculate about something. Tesla's a publicly traded stock. So.
It is. I would think to get a majority of the minority vote or whatever you might need might be not easy.
It's not out of the question, but that would have to be something that the Tesla shareholders would want to vote for.
At that time when millions of these things are coming off of a line like we just saw with cars, they're going to be fully autonomous. They're going to come off, and the way you've described it, they're going to be able to come in my house, and I'm going to be able to say, all right, do the dishes. Now I need you to walk the dog.
Absolutely.
Hold the baby.
In fact, you really won't even need to. It'll figure out what you probably want and do what you probably want without you even having to ask.
You said recently tens of billions of robots, but that's decades away.
At least 1 decade away.
It's got to be more than that.
It's going to grow very fast.
Why do you think that?
I think humanoid robots will be the biggest product ever. The demand will be insatiable.
You've said that.
Everyone's going to want one. It's like basically who wouldn't want their own personal C-3PO R2-D2?
No,
everyone's going to want one.
You've said that, and your goal. You've also said is to produce 1 million robots. I think by 2030. That's what I had you on the record as saying.
I think that's a reasonable target.
And then start towards sustainable abundance, which you can get into. But I wonder. We've been talking about autonomous and how long it takes to train the automobile to be able to be the equivalent of or exceed human capabilities. But what about these robots? To the extent that how much training are they going to need to actually to be able to do various different types of tasks? Isn't that something that's going to take a long time? Yeah.
It's going to take a lot of compute resources, and it'll take time. I think there's certain threshold breakthroughs that we think we can achieve, where if Optimus can watch videos, YouTube videos or how-to videos or whatever, and based on that video, just like a human can, learn how to do that thing, then you really have task extensibility that is dramatic. Because then it can learn anything very quickly. So I think we'll get there in the next.
We're not there yet, though.
We're not there yet.
You're relying on a significant uptick in terms of learning and training.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm calling it a very significant threshold. Would be the ability to learn from watching a video.
Right.
But at the point
as opposed to watching a human, right? Or having a human sort of train it right now with a task.
I mean. Right now, we're training Optimus to do like primitive tasks where a human in a kind of a what's called a mocap suit is and sort of cameras on the head is moving in the way that the robot would move to say pick up an object or open a door or the basic tasks, throw a ball, dance, and we need to. I think that's needed to sort of bootstrap the intelligence so you can have the basic functions. Then where I think it gets very interesting and very much like humans is that you want the robot to self-play. Right. So you say, how does a child learn? Well, a child has toys, and a child plays with the toys, plays with the blocks, at some point figures out how to put the triangle in the triangle hole and the circle in the circle hole. By doing it over and over again, and this self-play. Once you have a lot of robots, you can do this self-play, which is that you just put the robot in a room with toys, and have the robot literally have the robot play with toys,
and it will learn.
Yeah. And you have to have a reward function. Say like, okay, the goal of the robot is to put that classic child's toy. You put the circle in the circle hole, the square in the square hole, triangle in triangle hole, and keep doing it until it works. And the reward function is succeeding.
And there are no advances needed to accomplish that now? I mean, no advances in AI or just compute and things of that nature that can happen?
There are some advances needed, but I don't think these are insurmountable. I think we can solve these things in the next few years.
Lots and lots of information from Elon Musk yesterday. But there's still some of these talking heads that have some skepticism when it comes to Elon's vision or Tesla's execution. It's always fun to hear what the bears have to say.
What do you make of these comments of the interview? I mean, it was an unprecedented two-part interview here.
David does a great job. I mean, a lot to glean from that without question. There's a lot of hopium, as Dan will tell you. Self-driving is the way. I mean, their head of self-driving basically said, I think it was earlier this month, that Waymo is a couple years ahead of them. So there clearly is competition, but break down the stock from here.
I've also been reading that some of the bears misconstrued what Ashok has said, that Waymo has started this a couple of years before Tesla even got this off the ground. It's not shocking that they're already collecting rides. They're a couple of years ahead of us. Question is, how fast will it be when Tesla overtakes them in rides given and miles driven?
Made an all-time high close to $500 earlier this year for a lot of different reasons. Traded down to that sort of 220 level, which we collectively said was support before, should be support again. This bounce that you've seen, and you just mentioned it's a big one, is about a 50% retracement of that entire move. It makes sense that we're here The question is, do you continue to own the stock on the optimism, or do you trade around the edges, which has been an opportunity for the last few years?
Yeah, so what's interesting, you asked, is it driving the stock? When you look at Waymo, they probably have 700 cars, out there in 4 different cities right now. They work pretty well. I've been in them. It's a pretty interesting experience. It takes up to 4 people in those cars. In the Google or Alphabet's other bets last year, they lost about $2 billion, right? So this takes me back to Tesla back in the day. The Model S and the Model X were meant to fund what's going on in the lower end, which is the Model 3 and the Model Y. Now, those cars have done really well. I think it's a really low percentage of the cars that they make right now are those higher end ones. So if you think about all the losses that Alphabet has just to put Waymo on the streets, until you get some level of scale, these things are not scaling. Even the Waymo is not scaling. So when you think about what's going on, they're going to launch 10, maybe 20 of these robo-taxis or cybercabs. They're 2-seat cars, which is kind of, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
They're 2-seat cars. And so,
First and foremost, most Uber rides are 1 or 2 people. I mean, a vast majority of them. And if they aren't going to be 1 or 2 people, more than likely Tesla's going to send them a Model Y. Can more than 1 or 2 people get in the Model Y? I think they can, Dan. What the is Dan talking about?
at the end of the day, if Tesla's going to make these things, then that means that they have to own the fleet. And that's something that we learned this from Uber over the last 10 or years or so. Nobody wants to own the fleet. If you want to talk about losses until something scales,
right,
that's the thing. And one last point, when you look at earnings for Tesla, they're expected to do $4 in 2027. They did $4.07 back in 2022. So you got to figure out how to pay for this thing. So if the stock is up 40% right now, it's got over $1 trillion market cap. I just don't see how it grows into that because Optimus is years away.
Yeah, I don't really think there's much debate over whether or not, the stock is trading a bit dislocated from the actual automotive business. I mean, if you look at the last quarter's numbers, you had a 20% decline in revenue and 71% decline in net income. So clearly that coupled with a 40% rally, you see some dislocation there. That doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense. With that said, and Dad makes a good point. If you talk about the fleet, you typically don't see these type of multiples on very highly capital intensive businesses. It just kind of erodes gross margin. You have deferred maintenance, you have CapEx, you have all of these things that you have to, an inflated cost basis that makes it very tough to support that type of multiple. With that said, I clearly think, the bulls are all about humanoid robots, full self-driving, and you really have to get behind that story if you're going to own the stock, particularly at this level.
When are they going to learn? Imposing the shortcomings of other companies onto what Tesla is attempting to do? That is what is wrought with folly, sure. With the fundamentals being a little disconnected, the theme of the bears is that the stock is trading on hope. And I can't deny it. I am quite hopeful for the future. Every time I get inside my Tesla vehicle, every time I use energy from the sun, every time there's a blackout and I'm not impacted. So when I look at the future prospects of Tesla, after being a user of their products right here, right now, yes, I'm quite hopeful.
It has never traded with an auto multiple. It has never traded on sales. It has never traded on all these things that you guys are talking about. It's always traded on hope.
Yeah.
Adam Jonas of Morgan Stanley makes an interesting point. He says most of the valuation of Tesla is based on products that have no disclosure, little disclosure, or are far from commercialization. And it has always been the case for Tesla's valuation that has made up the bulk of the valuation. Julie Beal, I know you can't get on board with Tesla, but can you see why others might?
No, not at all. I think the real thing is that it's all kind of hopes and dreams. Remember, the very first time we talked about robotaxis was in 2019, and Elon was promising 1 million robotaxis by 2020. So I think the credibility gap with the proclamations that we're expecting has always been very wide. There's never really been an ability to deliver. And I think if you look at what the Cybertruck really means, it's an inability to recognize product market fit. And I think it's the same with having a 2-seater for your robot taxi. You're really building off of what you think is kind of cool and great, but I really don't have conviction that it's what the market is looking for.
That's enough of that. True. Most of what they say sounds smart. But would you rather be smart Or would you rather be on the rocket ship as Tesla heads to the moon? Now, I won't begin to say that Tesla doesn't have room to fall or room to grow. All I know is I want as many shares of this company as I possibly can before they start collecting revenue from miles driven in addition to per car. The stock has a tendency to surprise individuals. If you're asleep at the wheel, you might miss that exit. That's all I've got for you today. Be easy. Peace.